Today I'm going to talk to you guys about Enneagram Type 5. I'm going to give you a general overview. My name is Damien and this is Enneagram Life. So, Enneagram Type 5 is, to me, my image of Enneagram Type 5 is that of a rabbit caught in the headlights of a car. You know, like when a car comes over the hill and then suddenly the rabbit turns and sees it and the rabbit's frozen and it just stares at the car and the car's bearing down fast on it and the rabbit doesn't move, it's just frozen in the headlights. That is my image of what the Enneagram Type 5, the emotional place that the Enneagram Type 5 is in. And the best word to describe that place is overwhelmed. The Enneagram Type 5, emotionally, they're overwhelmed. They're a fear type. The 5, 6, and the Enneagram 7, all three of these types are fear types. So fear is at the core of Enneagram Type 5. But the fear is at the core of the 6 and the 7, and it's how the different types, how they process the fear, that characterizes the differences and characterizes these different types. And so fear isn't the best word to describe the Enneagram Type 5, even though that's the emotion at their core. They process fear into, well, being overwhelmed. And so that word is the best word that I know of to characterize Enneagram Type 5. I think, imagine as a little hypothetical to put you in the emotional place of the Enneagram Type 5. Imagine like you as you are now, you're just a regular person. I'm going to assume that you're not a construction engineer. Imagine that right now someone told you that you must build a skyscraper, one of those enormous buildings, and you must begin construction in 2 months' time. And you're just a regular person. How are you going to suddenly feel? Like, obviously that's not going to happen, but just imagine if that did happen. How would you suddenly feel if that was suddenly landed in your lap and you had to do that? And you were going to feel the consequences of if it failed, if the building fell down. If that was what would your feeling suddenly be if you suddenly had to do that? You'd be overwhelmed. It'd be like that feeling, just like the rabbit, just that shock and that overstimulated. And that's how they feel. That's how they respond to life and the fear that's inside them. Yeah, so the Enneagram Type 5, they're known for various characteristics, hoarding information, being cheap, saving money, being very selfish. Bunch of different characteristics, and they all come down to being overwhelmed. That is so much at their center. Not making decisions. I was working with this Enneagram Type 5 and renovating his house, and he had to decide on a paint color for the bottom part of his house. And he took months to decide between, there was like 4 or 5 different colors, and in different lights, like at different times of the day, each color looked the exact same as all the other colors. They all were that similar. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't make a decision over what color. And it took him months and months. And it chewed up time and money too, in that if he had made the decision earlier, it would have saved time. But, making a decision was just such a painful thing for him. Because if you think about it, like making decisions, the mindset that you have to be in to make a decision is you have to feel that you have a grasp when you make your best decisions, or you feel most comfortable making a decision when you have a good grasp on what's going on. You think you know what's going on, and you understand all the possibilities, and you get it. You've got that grip on the situation. And that is like the direct opposite of what it is to be overwhelmed. Feeling you have a grip on the situation and being overwhelmed, they're like the two polar opposites. And that's why, it's so difficult for them to make decisions. And the information hoarding it relates to that too. Like back to the construction, if you had to build that skyscraper, one of the things you would do is, you don't know anything about construction. You're going to go out there and try to find out as much about construction as you can. Get in as much information because you just feel overwhelmed. And but that's actually quite a logical thing too. And Enneagram 5s do it for that reason as well. But they also hoard the information as a kind of, just because if they're doing that, they don't have to make the decision, to avoid the pain of having to make the decision. And it's just the place that they feel safe in too. Like the rabbit that's stuck there in the car, it's not making any decision, it's not deciding to move, it's just taking everything in. And that is the place where they feel comfortable. And that's a part of, they know they're overwhelmed too, the Enneagram Type 5s. They know they're going to feel overwhelmed. And that relates to why they want to, they say they're seen as selfish. Often they try and save a lot of money, or they spend all their time doing some hobby that's most likely alone. And because, they feel that they need things to retreat to. They need a place to retreat to, and they need things to retreat to as like an armor against the world, which they know they're going to be overwhelmed by in the future, and they have constantly been overwhelmed by it. So they want to go out there and get as much resources as they can, squirrel them away, so they have a nest to retreat from the world to. That sort of selfish retreat of that feeling of exhausted is a major thing. They often, because they're exhausted by the world, because it's all that overstimulation, and they want to have something to run away to and retreat from it all. Yeah. And a word that to me really signifies the Enneagram Type 5. And this word is going to sound offensive maybe, but I don't mean it to be offensive. It's a colloquial word, just everyday speech. And the reason I would use this word is because often sometimes academic language doesn't describe emotions as well as everyday speech. And so I'm talking about the word dead shit. Like often that is how Enneagram Type 5 is seen, and often that's how I think of the Enneagram Type 5 when I think of individuals, because you meet them in certain situations, like social situations, and dead shit is all about someone that doesn't contribute, doesn't say anything, doesn't, really boring, like getting blood out of a stone in terms of conversation, and dead shit really does sum that up. There isn't a better academic term. And so yeah, I think hopefully all of these type of things show how, hopefully I've shown how it all relates to being overwhelmed, and that's how they process the fear. Often when they do say something, it's like a gross overreaction, because they'll be there and they'll be saying nothing, and they'll just be overwhelmed day in, day out, maybe at the office or something, by whatever's going on. And then all of a sudden they'll crack and they'll spaz out and they'll say something ridiculous, because it's just that, from that emotional place of not being able to handle something, and then they'll just chuck a spat, and maybe they'll throw their computer screen out the window or something like that after saying almost nothing for a month in the office. That type of behavior. Yeah. So when they are at a point of growth, that's kind of when they move towards their link to the Type 8. And it's the part of the Type 8 which is the whole, it isn't a colloquial term, but it's like grab life by the balls. Like that is a part of the type 8 thinking. And that's, if a 5 is like that, that's when they're moving towards growth, when they're going out there and they're grabbing life by the balls, and they're looking for experiences, and they're trying to get involved, which is not what they're normally really uninvolved. And then when they're at points of stress, they move towards the 7, because that's about the silliness and just playing around. And that'll probably be like something that they will do with their friends that they've been friends with, maybe they met in high school. Some people that have been around for years, or their family, the very few people who they kind of open up to, and they'll just sort of indulge in silliness with them as a way of avoiding facing the things that do overwhelm them. So that's them under stress, them behaving negatively. And really, moving towards the things that overwhelm them is much more the way to solve being overwhelmed, rather than the retreat and the that sort of selfish seclusion that's a big part of the Enneagram Type 5. Anyway, if you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe.